computer also. Hi.
Excellent.
Hi, my name is Robert Gibson. I'm here with a guest, Patricia Wilson, and you're listening to Environmental Soup through the facilities of Trent Radio. If you happen to be listening later on, I'm building a YouTube channel, and I'll post it on my Environmental Soup Facebook page as well. So this is also, I am broadcasting on Mississauga and Anishinaabe territory, and I know that Patricia will be talking about Informed Fridays, which is important throughout the year, because a lot of Black and Indigenous voices are not heard as often as they should be. So I'll allow you to introduce yourself. So hi Patricia.
Hello, Robert. Good to see you. It's good to be back on Environmental Soup. It's always nice to chat with you. So I guess for those of you who don't know about the Kawartha Land Trust, I can kind of chat a little bit about KLT, and then I guess a little bit about myself and my role within the organization. So Kawartha Land Trust is an environmental nonprofit and a registered charity that's dedicated to protecting and preserving natural lands within Peterborough and the Kawarthas. Currently, we protect 22 properties that total over 4,700 acres of diverse and natural landscapes across the Kawarthas. We also help to manage 5 additional properties, and we also have an ongoing partners in conservation project within the Fleetwood Creek watershed, where we work with landowners to help support them in being the best stewards for their lands. So my role within the organization is as the community conservation coordinator. So basically, I get to work to build community and support within the Kawarthas. And so I help to organize and coordinate our volunteers. I plan stewardship work days and community outreach events. I also help to foster partnerships with different community groups and organizations for collaborative events. And I've also been actively working on engaging with First Nation communities, and I've been helping KLT do some work, and we've been working with consultants to help KLT further develop positive working relationships with our First Nation communities. So yeah, that's, I guess, a little bit of a generalization of my role. And so my background, I went to Trent University. I'm a grad from Trent, so it's always nice to be on Trent Radio. I'm supporting the Trent community. Woo! Air high five.
High five. Air high five.
Love it. And so I graduated from the biology department with a specialization in conservation biology. And then I also am a graduate from Fleming College from the ecosystem management program. And so I've been with KLT for almost 5 years now, and I started as a volunteer, and I've worked a couple of different contract roles, stewardship coordinating, administrative support roles, and so now I am the community conservation coordinator with the organization currently.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the next question I had planned was KLT protects biodiversity and works to enhance existing biodiversity. And I was wondering, for the listeners, why it's so important to protect biodiversity.
Right. Yeah. So there's lots of different reasons. I mean, one of the biggest and most obvious reasons that protecting biodiversity and our land, our natural land, is so important is because we're losing it, with development, right? And we're developing at a rapid and alarming rate, and we're spreading out our urban areas. And as we do that, we're losing our natural lands, which means we're losing spaces for species to live, right? And our environment, our natural environment, provides so many ecological benefits to us as humans, and so it is in our best interest to be preserving them. And we it was World Wetland Day the other day, and we were talking about how important it is to preserve wetlands. I mean, wetlands are carbon sinks, so they hold and sequester carbon that's out in our atmosphere, and we all know that carbon in our atmosphere is one of the biggest contributors to climate change and like global warming, right? So our wetlands are so important, and our wetlands purify our water for us to drink. There's so many different benefits to even just that component of our natural world. And what KLT strives to do in the ways that we protect land is to protect land that is maybe adjacent to an already established natural area or protected natural area, to provide a larger buffer for that. And so kind of one of the ways, I mean, we have a lot of different criteria we go through when we accept land donations and when we think about protecting lands. But one of the criteria is we try to follow this mapping scenario called that Kawartha is naturally connected, put together, and it's a preferred scenario, and they've mapped out the Kawarthas, and they've looked at all of the areas of high connectivity across the landscape. And so what we try to do is acquire properties that have the highest level of connectivity, which just means that it has the highest level of natural space for species to move and flow through, right? And so when you have these pockets of biodiversity, right, and you're trying to connect them, there's more space for species to move and migrate, right? And so that's kind of what our goal has been in protecting natural spaces in the Kawarthas. And I mean, anyone who has spent any time here or who explored nature here knows that, the Kawarthas is such a beautiful gem in Ontario. And there's just so many amazing places that are just so rich with diversity, we want to protect it before it's gone. I mean, we're cottage country, right? And there's so many beautiful places to paddle, to camp, to explore, to hike, and there's so much history here too, right? And both culturally and we just want to preserve that. So that I guess in a nutshell is why protecting biodiversity on our land is so important. It's we got to protect it before it's gone, because we won't have it again, and yeah.
Yes, thank you for reminding everyone of the importance of protecting the natural environment. Yeah, and the next question I have.
It's also really a big issue too. I mean, not to touch too much on our current political climate, but we have had a lot of funding cuts to conservation in our environmental world, right? And so protecting these natural areas is a larger fight for us now, right? Because we have governments that come in and they take away valuable funding that has helped us, to protect land, and we have a lot of species at risk, and we've got programs that were put in place to help mitigate our impact as humans, and to help to protect these areas, protect these animals. And so when we're losing the funding for that, it's something, it's an even greater fight for sure. So that's something to also be aware of. And yeah.
And what I've found is that it's not just this government that's been taking back nature. It's been previous governments.
Oh yes, yeah. It's been happening for a long time. It's kind of like a running joke where it's like every year you're getting less and less funding, right? So we're relying more and more on supporters and people in our community to get together and collaborating with different partners so we can pool our funds together to be able to do restoration projects or to protect land and things like that, right? And there's different organizations doing that work, and we're having to have these conversations more and more and come together more and more, because it's every year we're just losing out on money, right? And programming gets cut, and yeah, it's hard.
Yes, I can imagine. I'm not in that role, but I know politicians of all stripes view it as the one of the least important, but it's actually very important.
Yeah, and it's hard because I think our government and people in power are looking at, you know, the economy and how to make money, right? And what's going to give them the biggest bang for their buck. And nature is never considered something that provides us benefit outside of, oh, it's really pretty, right? Or, oh, it's a nice thing, you know, it's nice to have a view, but it goes beyond that, right? Like there's a lot of ecological services that we get from nature, you know, and you even see it with like a lot of like increased flooding in a lot of places because they've paved over their wetlands, right? And or they've, you know, logged a bunch, and so then now your infrastructure and like insurance rates are going up in a lot of different places because frequent flooding is happening. And you know, if we had retained some of those wetlands, for example, like that, there'd be a place for all that stormwater runoff and stuff to go, right? So there is a benefit to us as humans in society that stems, you know, further from, oh, it's just so nice, and oh, we got to protect it for the species that live there. It's, you know, we all benefit, we're all connected, and we've lost that connection with nature, and therefore I think that people don't see it or view it as being as important, but it is.
Yeah, thank you. The next question is very timely, which is how has Kawartha Land Trust adapted to the pandemic? And I'm a volunteer, so I've seen some of this, but maybe the listeners might not.
Yeah, so just to briefly, I mean, it kind of took everyone by shock this year, right? And we're an organization that's really hands-on, and we like to get people out in nature and working with us, right? So that was a big challenge for us. But some of the ways we've adapted, we had a couple of different webinars. So we did a webinar for World Bird Day, or World Migration Day, sorry, and it was really great. So we had a couple great speakers come out to do that, and it was really engaging and fun. And we also had one talking about conservation lands in the Kawarthas and the history there, and so that was also really engaging. So those were two ways we were able to kind of still connect with our audience. We still do a lot of work, and we have a lot of volunteers doing work behind the scenes, just not in person. So we've had a lot of Zoom meetings with some volunteers doing some stuff, writing articles for us, or like, you know, our committees and boards are always working behind the scenes on, you know, stewardship plans for properties, or we're working on, you know, acquiring other properties and going through the checklist and things like that. So like internally, we've been doing a lot of work still, and having volunteers participate in that. And then we were able to do some in-person events at a safe social distance, and we did events where we had people come in waves in different groups, offered hand sanitizer, everyone had to wear masks. So we've been taking the pandemic really seriously, but we also know that getting outside and connecting with nature is just, it's vital for people's mental health, but also for the work that we do, right? We need that help on our properties to help properly steward these lands. So that's how we've adapted. Last year was actually kind of a great year for us in the sense that we actually acquired this awesome property, the Christie Bentham wetlands, and it's up just on like Clear Lake, Stony Lake area. And it was actually a huge community effort. So the community got together, rallied together, and actually raised funds, and we purchased this property. So we raised $1 million in, you know, it was like less than 2 months. And the community kind of got together to make it happen. We had social distance tours, and we got the word out there on the news, and it was just like a good news story to end out the year, and people really engaged with that. So yeah, so we've still been active, and people have still been engaging with us just in different ways. And so that's how we've kind of adapted to the pandemic.
Okay, well that's good. And I saw that I know that some of the trails are still open, or at least have been open.
That's right. So we made the decision to keep our trails open. We've put up signage, and we've reminded people to maintain that social distance when they're out on the trails, and to be mindful. I mean, if it looks like it's full, please don't go in there, right? And just be mindful of other people. But it's something, again, where people need that escape to nature for their mental health and their well-being, they need to walk. They need to just breathe fresh air. You know, we're all cooped up, things are locked down, you know, everyone's mental health is wavering. And so it's nice to be able to provide those opportunities for people to get outside and connect with nature, especially during these trying times. And the only trails that we've had to close and then reopen were the trails where we have kind of like a management agreement. They're not owned by us. And so like the one property would be our John Earl Chase Memorial Park. So it's owned by Parks Canada and the Trent Severn. And so when they chose to close their parks and stuff, that was one of the properties that had to close. But yeah, we tried to keep our trails open, and we had our volunteers, our lead stewards for our properties and other volunteers. They went out and they were making sure the trails were clear, and so that people could utilize them during this time.
Yeah, well, thank you for keeping them open.
No worries.
And well, I guess this is on the same lines of the pandemic. Like going forward, although any events that you envision seeing continuing virtual.
Yeah, so we're, in terms of events in general, right now we're kind of, we had to wait to see what the province was going to say in terms of lockdown and how long this would be extended until. And, you know, we are going into our 20th year. So we wanted to have some 20th anniversary celebrations and things like that. And so we are working and brainstorming and figuring out ways we can have events that take into consideration people's safety, but also gets people involved with us. I think we are hoping to do a couple of virtual events. And then later on in the summertime, hopefully some in-person stuff, some workshops, some hikes, but I'm not sure what that looks like quite yet. We're still kind of planning that, but yeah, we're hoping.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, I know it's a struggle planning too far ahead with everything going on. So
yeah, it's hard. There is one event that I know we are doing in partnership with Wild Rock. We're doing a women's kind of empowerment workshop event. So it's a women-led workshop for women to learn about different skills for navigating, you know, enjoying nature. So backpacking skills and what that looks like for women. And so that was kind of in celebration for International Women's Day, and we'll be hosting that in June. So yeah, that's something that we'll be posting about soon.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you have a date for my listeners yet, but if you don't, that's okay. But
yeah, no, so it's June 18th, and it'll be a registered event, and so we'll be putting out those details. We'll be launching the details of that on International Women's Day, which is coming up next month, and then we will be kind of doing that in June when the weather is a little bit warmer and hopefully restrictions are a little bit looser and things kind of settle. So that's the hope.
yeah, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so my next question is, you did touch on some of it. How does someone get involved with Kawartha Land Trust?
Yeah, so really hard for us to take on volunteers right now because we're not really sure what we're doing, and so we're not really advertising, but anytime people can email myself because I coordinate all of our volunteers and kind of give them the information, get them filling out different forms and giving them orientation items and things like that, and getting them in our system and setting them up with whatever we have available. So it really just comes through me. So if people are interested but right now we're really slow in terms of opportunities and even more restricted just with everything going on. But we're hoping when spring gets here and as field season ramps up that we will be able to start utilizing our volunteers a bit more.
Okay, thank you. And is your email on the Kawartha Land Trust? Site?
Yeah, it's on the website, but my email is pwilson@kawarthalandtrust.org.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
And I wanted to talk about Informed Fridays. I've been seeing a lot of posts about Informed Fridays, and it's also Black History Month. It's not just for Black History Month, of course, but I was wondering if you were able to tell share with the listeners
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Informed Fridays was something that was an idea that I had last summer, just as all of these protests and things were going on, and we're having a lot of great conversations internally about diversity and inclusion and equity and what that looks like in our organization, and how to kind of promote that and support that. And so I thought it would be a really great first step. And our organization agreed that it would be nice to do an Informed Friday. So we dedicate Fridays. It's not every Friday, but we use Fridays as the day where we try to amplify diverse voices. We try to keep it as like local to our area or to Ontario or Canada specific, but it could be anything. Like we'll highlight podcasts, we'll highlight books written by marginalized voices. Maybe it's research that's been done, or it's an organization doing some awesome work. So that's kind of the stuff that we spotlight, or it's individual people or organizations making a difference. And it's usually conservation, environmentally based. Because that's what our supporters are looking for. But historically, diverse voices aren't as amplified in a lot of different sectors, and the environmental and conservation one is one of them, right? And that's we have a long-standing history of that. If you look at like Indigenous voices not being listened to when it comes to clean drinking water, or they're not being brought into conversations centered around stewardship and restoration of areas and things like that, and the government has kind of shut them out of conversations, and so we've seen that happen time and time again. So this is just our little way of being able to kind of work towards highlighting some people who are doing some great work and who happen to be a diverse voice. And yeah, so for this month we've focused, because it's Black History Month, we've focused on amplifying people within that community. So we've kind of we've highlighted a book that was about environmental racism happening in Nova Scotia, which is really interesting read. And there's a really great documentary Reframe did about that last year as well. This Friday we're highlighting a local group called Black Girls Chatter. So they talk about all things, all these issues that come up, and they have an awesome podcast, and they're doing one about environmental racism and things like that. And, just highlighting these different voices and getting people different eyes on them and supporting them.
Yeah,
so that's the idea.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. Informed Fridays with us.
Yeah, and we're always, like, just for the viewers and people listening, we're always looking for people within our community to be able to spotlight. If you know someone who's a diverse voice and who's doing some awesome work, especially in the environmental and conservation field, we want to know about it, want to hear about it. Message us, send us messages on our social media, email me, like we're trying to tap in as best as we can. We've got 2 awesome volunteers, Phoebe and Paris, that have been working really hard on building up a list of different people and outreach and chatting with people within our community to figure out who we can highlight next. But we're always looking for people, and I know that especially within the Trent community, there are a lot of individuals doing a lot of great work, and I'd love to be able to shine some light on some of your accomplishments. So please send it in to me.
Yeah, I'm sure that some of my listeners will send recommendations to you.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, and do you have a favorite book or podcast that came out of Informed Fridays? Or
good. That's a good question. I've been following Black Girls Chatter for a while, and they're really great group. 2 girls that kind of, they touch on a lot of great issues. So I definitely recommend listening and checking them out. They're pretty awesome. And I mean, we always highlight, like we've highlighted in the past, Caleb Musgrave, he owns Canadian Bushcraft, so he does a lot of teachings on bushcraft skills, and he leads awesome workshops and stuff. A lot of stuff that he offers is free knowledge, and he's always doing webinars and things like that. So sometimes we'll spotlight him. And so I always learn a lot from Caleb. He's really great. He actually led our Monoman harvesting event that we hosted, his first ever one we had on Boyd Island. And that was this past September. So that was great. Joe Pitawanakwat of Creators Gardens, he always is doing amazing work, and he shares traditional ecological knowledge and medicine, plant-based knowledge. And so he's led a couple of walks for us, but he's always leading these great webinars and always does kind of podcasts and stuff. So he's also a great source of knowledge. And so those are some people that we've also highlighted and that I really enjoy listening to their podcasts or participating in their webinars and things like that. So definitely check them out.
Well, thank you. I'll check some of your recommendations out after this.
Yeah, and definitely go back through our Informed Fridays. We've highlighted some pretty cool people and organizations doing some awesome work. Like the Peely Climate Council in Toronto is doing some really great advocacy work, and they're always doing some great environmental justice stuff, and they always need support. So there's just lots of great people that we've gotten a chance to connect with through this initiative, which has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. So I know that you touched on an upcoming events. I was wondering, is there other events that are upcoming that you're able to share, or?
So like I said before, we're still kind of planning, right? So we were kind of waiting a little bit to figure out what things would look like and when things would open back up. And so I think, that's stuff that we're brainstorming as a team and trying to figure out. So I can't officially say what events we have. I know that we're hoping to have some, keeping in mind COVID protocols and restrictions, right? So yeah, so stay tuned. And you can always check out our website and social media, sign up for our e-newsletter, and that'll keep you informed.
Sounds good. And what do you like about KOT now that you've both fall on the volunteer side and you're on your work side?
Yeah, so what I love the most about KLT and what I think is so unique to our organization is that we have such an amazing pool of passionate and dedicated people, both on a staff level and a volunteer level, and we work collaboratively together. When I was a volunteer, I felt like staff. I mean, I wasn't getting paid as staff, but I felt included, right? We include our volunteers in a lot of our decision making, right? And we encourage feedback from our volunteers to make things better. We also empower our volunteers to take initiative and lead stuff for us, right? When I was volunteer, I got to lead some hikes, right? Or I had some ideas on, some habitat enhancement projects, and I got to run with it, right? So because we are such a small organization, and because we are such a small staff team, we're really dedicated and focused on particular aspects. So, but it allows for freedom in the sense that our volunteers can kind of take on stuff that they're really interested in and passionate about. And, that helps us grow. I mean, we're such a small organization and we rely heavily on our volunteer support. All of our committees, our trustees, our board of directors, all volunteers, right? And our boots on the ground, people who help us with restoration work and the stewardship stuff and even stewardship planning with our lead stewards, all volunteers, right? Which is amazing. And we could not do the work that we do without our volunteers and these dedicated and passionate people, right? And it's fun because you get people of all ages, right? We have youth that work with us, and then we have people who are retired, and we've got people in the middle, and we have people who come out with their families, and it's nice because we're all there for the same thing or similar things, and we're all connected and chatting, and one of my favorite things is field season. We're out doing events. I think you've come out to our Valley Duff trails where we've been revitalizing tall grass prairie. So we harvest seed there. We've done plug planting, and it's super fun day because everyone is just in such a good mood. We're outside. It's beautiful. The prairie is beautiful in the late summer because it's all come up and we're collecting seeds, and it's just a nice way to connect with nature with other people. So that connectedness and that togetherness, I think, is what makes us so special and so unique. And having a whole bunch of different types of people come out and all connecting on and geeking out over nature, I think it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And we honestly, we couldn't do the work that we do. We couldn't be proper stewards of these lands that we protect without our volunteers. It's crucial, the support that we have from our volunteers.
I have to make it out to the Valley Duff Trail harvesting. I missed the last couple of seeding and harvesting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, definitely come out. It's a lot of fun, and it's super easy. So it's nice because people can bring their kids out and their families. So that's a lot of fun. And it's a good day. It's a good day, and it's always beautiful out on the prairie. And the homeowner there. So that's one of our properties. That's an easement property. So the homeowner Ralph, he's so passionate about his property. So he's out there every day and he's chatting with people and he's just talking about all the years of stewardship work he's done on the property. So it's really great to connect with the landowners in that way too.
Yeah, well, Ralph is awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
So, this is the top of the owl. And if you're listening on Trent, if you're listening through Trent Radio, this is Environmental Soup through the facilities of Trent Radio. 92.7 FM. Hopefully I got all the F's correct, but I was wondering if there's anything you would like to add or
so one thing that we are really working on this year is, so we've protected this Christie Bentham project and it's part of this larger Clear Lake North Wetland kind of trail project. And so, there's going to be lots of fundraising happening this year and our goal and the future of that is to hopefully have, a connected trail of or a connected network of trails that run from that property down in through Lakefield. So so we're working on engaging with that community there, which is awesome. Everyone's super passionate about the project, and we're working with Orca they have a property that's adjacent to the Christie Bentham property called the Heber Rogers Conservation Area. And so we're working with them there. So it is really exciting. And so there's probably lots to come this year centered around that area. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And so, but we're hoping to have some events and things posted soon. And we're always looking for people who want to get involved with us. So stay tuned for those opportunities.
Well, I enjoy going out in the field, especially Big Boyd Island. That's one of my favorite
Boyd is beautiful. That's a beautiful island. It's like over 1,000 acres, and it's just so stunning. It's so stunning. It's like, I think it's like the largest freshwater island in the Kawarthas. So it's pretty significant.
Yeah, I see it on the when looking at the map. That's one I can spot right away, which is nice.
Yeah, you can definitely see it. It's huge. It's cool too because it's such a great spot. There's a lot of cottagers in that area, but a lot of people who come up from different areas, they'll rent boats and they'll go around and you can dock on the island and have lunch. We've got a trail system through there. So it's really nice, beautiful spots to swim. But when you go into the middle of the island, it kind of opens up because it's shallow soil over rock. So it's kind of like an open meadow, and like in like the late summer, there's just beautiful wildflowers, bergamot and different asters and stuff coming up, and it's so nice. You see so many different butterfly species and lots of wildlife there. It's definitely a beautiful hidden gem to check out.
Yeah. That is one thing I didn't ask you about, the wildlife sightings. Have you?
Yeah. Well, so it's funny. It's funny because yeah, our a lot of our properties are so diverse. One of the best properties for wildlife sightings, though, especially if you're a birder, is Arcation Wildlife Preserve in Cobeconk. It's such a big property. It's like 660 acres of protected land. There's a provincially significant wetland that goes right through it, but there's like it's open meadow thickets for a lot of it, and then there's like an early successional forest in the back end of it, but it's open meadow thickets, so like you just see all types of birds. It's a birding hotspot, and there's deer there. We've set up trail cams, and we've seen moose and their babies. We've seen deer. We've seen bears. We've seen coyotes. We've seen foxes. So like it's very active there. Anytime you're there, you're always seeing animals or hearing them. And yeah, it's great. That's a really beautiful spot. Definitely check it out. But all of our properties are so beautiful in their own different ways, unique ways, right? But yeah, definitely check out Cation if you're someone who's a birder, for sure.
Yeah, I remember. I think I was with you. And the Peterborough Field Naturalist, possibly. There was a bat that we saw. So.
Oh, what property was that? Was that at Cation?
Not at Cation. It might.
That might
I
have
forget.
been oh, yes. It was when we did that salamander walk on the Stony Lake trails. Yeah, and it was at nighttime, and the bat flew over us. Yeah. Super cool. Yeah, yeah, there's so many great properties to check out. That was the Engleton Wells property, so it's part of the Stony Lake trails. It's just a great connected corridor.
That's the one I'm thinking of. I didn't have it in my head, but
yeah. Oh, great property. They're all great properties.
Yeah, and I like that those different accessibility activity levels. So like some of them are more like flat, and some of them are more like
yeah, there's definitely a range, and that's also something KLT is working on too. When we talk about inclusivity and all of that, is to also be mindful when we're doing events and stuff like that, to let people know about like the grade of the trail, or like how long they'll be walking, what the terrain is like, just to make sure people kind of understand, right? Because we have a diversity of people that come out to these events, people who are retired, people who maybe just got out of surgery, right? So, and then also updating trail signage to kind of give people a better sense of what the trails are like before they kind of embark on them. And we've got a lot of different properties that are flatter than others, right? And there's some with big hills on them that might not be for everyone. So that's another aspect of what we're working on. So this COVID time has given us a lot of time to do a lot more internal work and planning. So that's been a blessing, or one positive thing that's come out of all of this, but yeah.
And I know that this is related to like biodiversity. I know that the Peterborough City will be talking about the official plan coming up. So I don't know the date, but I do know that has to be done before 2022.
Right.
So that's coming up for any of my listeners or organizations that might be listening in. That's an additional opportunity to comment when it comes to City Council on biodiversity.
Right. Yeah. I always encourage people to get involved and voice your opinions on things, right? And because if you don't, then change doesn't happen, right? So I mean, it's always good to talk with your local representatives, to get informed on policies that are coming through, and to give that feedback when they ask for that community feedback, right? And it's super valuable, especially with people in our field, right, with these expertise and this knowledge, to put forth their feedback on that, because it will hopefully help inform these processes moving forward. And yeah.
And and then those on the environmental registry, there's also the announcement that the government is looking to potentially expand the green belt. I have to read the details still, but that's something that's something that's posted on the environmental registry, which is important to look at. It's not for this area, but necessarily, but it could be applied to other areas.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely good to stay informed and to read up on all of these different things, and sign those petitions, and kind of get the word out there, because we got to work together.
Yes. The different areas have some similar issues, and
yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for joining me for a second time, and
you're welcome anytime.
And and hopefully once the pandemic is over, we can do this again in the studio.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be back in the studio for sure. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. And definitely, if anyone who's listening is interested in getting involved with KLT, whether it's through becoming one of our supporters or a volunteer, just reach out. But yeah, keep informed. You can sign up for our e-newsletter to hear about upcoming opportunities to get involved, or events that we're having and things like that. So yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, well,
awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm just going to end the recording. It's stop.